Tip number one is watch out for girls that are your own age. So, what you really want to watch out for is dating girls the same age as you get older into your 20s and early 30s. I dated a girl that was the exact same age as me, 31 years old, and she was a great girl. We had a great relationship. She moved in for a little bit. And what I realized is girls of that age tend to hold a lot of trauma and baggage from previous relationships. Maybe they've had a lot of good quality guys that they would have married when they were in their 20s, but maybe they got their heart broken or it didn't work out. They're carrying a lot of that trauma and they're going to be really depicting that on you. And you're going to be maybe that next guy that is not doing those same things, but you might take the brunt of how they've been treated in the past because they're a lot more sensitive to these types of things, maybe that they're a bit older. And they tend to be a little bit more stuck in their ways as they get older, as we all are. But what you really want to do is weigh the pros and cons of maybe dating somebody under the age of, let's say, 25, for example. When I met my wife, she was 23 years old and I was 33 at the time, about a 9-year age gap for us. Now, that might seem a little young or unrealistic for you at the time of this video, but as you get older, you'll realize that you need to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. And obviously, dating somebody younger isn't going to be all easy sunshine and rainbows. No, it's going to have its own challenges because the maturity level might not be what you're used to, or they might be a little bit more addicted and reliant on their phones or certain other things that an older woman might not have issues with. Maybe they have a drug addiction or they like to drink. Now, that can be anybody in general. So that kind of brings us to point number two. Tip number two is make sure that you find somebody that isn't doing drugs and partying, that isn't drinking in excess, that doesn't have a dependency on a prescription anti-anxiety medication. Now, all these things, they might be actually harder to find than you think because everybody has some sort of addiction or dependency and self-medicating implementation into their life. But how I met my wife was at a breakfast diner. I just said hello. I've been practicing my own social skills up to that point and just being a social person in general. I said hello, started a conversation, and she's coming to interrupt me right now. So my approach was meeting people in general, being that social person all the time. So when I was out, if I saw somebody that I was attracted to, I would just say hello, strike up a conversation, and I always knew how to navigate in or out of that conversation if I could tell they were uncomfortable or they had a boyfriend maybe, or they didn't want to talk. But at this particular instance, when I met my wife at the breakfast diner, I just said hello, asked her what she was ordering, had a little joke around, had a laugh, and exchanged Instagrams. That way, they can get a clear picture into maybe your story or maybe what you're all about. They want to have a clear picture of who are you hanging out with, who are your friends, what do you look like. They don't want to have just some number in a phone. That's not going to get you anywhere. So make sure that you're beefing up your Instagram, you're having professional photos taken, and you have a strong social media presence when you're really serious about meeting that person that you want to have a long-term relationship with. So the big determining factor in my life when I chose my wife to be a long-term partner and then decided to get married was she didn't do drugs, she didn't drink or party, and she didn't have any dependency on prescription medications. A lot of girls that I've dated in the past at least had one of those. They had an addiction to anti-anxiety medications. One had a very serious drinking problem. One smoked more weed than I do and loved to smoke cigarettes and drink. So you really need to meet a lot of people. You do need to have a lot of different relationships as you grow up, and don't just marry that first person that you meet unless they are a wonderful person and they fit all of this criteria of not being addicted to any medication, drugs, or alcohol. These are things that you really need to be aware of, and you really need to audit where you're at in your own life so you can bring your best foot forward and be the best possible version of yourself in your relationship. But you also need to be very, very careful in the significant other that you're choosing, because they need to be on the same page. Maybe they only want one kid and you don't want any, or you want two and they only want one. Maybe they drink or they smoke more than you do. Maybe they're going down a specific path that you don't agree with and you don't see yourself in line. You don't see yourself really lining up with their values over time. Tip number 3 is you do need to think a little bit ahead and decide whether or not you want a career woman or a stay-at-home mom. So throughout my 20s and 30s, I dated a lot of career women, lawyers, nurses. All these women are great and they're all doing their thing and they're trying to achieve something, and that is amazing. And if things would have worked out differently, I wouldn't have any problem with a wife that works and we do childcare. But that's not something I really wanted for my life. And my wife wasn't a big career person. She had an okay job, but we decided that we wanted one of us home to take care of the kids. So we have a little bit more of a traditional relationship in the fact that I take care of the kids. I do take care of the kids a lot. She takes care of the kids and I go to work. So down the line, when they go to school and they get a little bit older, they're very young now, maybe she will go back to work to help us out a little bit. I don't know. But when you're choosing between a career woman and someone that really knows that they want to focus on their kids, and you can influence that, that's going to be a choice that you need to make. And I'm not saying one way or the other is better. Most of the people that I know, quite frankly, almost all of them, both of them work. They get childcare, they both work, and they have great lives. They have lived great lifestyles. I don't know what their home life is. I don't know how they are with their kids, but just realize that sacrifices need to be made one way or the other. You're going to be an all-star parent if you're home all day with the kids. Your parenting and relationship with your kids is probably going to suffer a little bit if you're always working. So just know that you do need to work and you do need to make that money, and one person probably more than the other. So plan ahead, make sure that you know what you're getting into before you make that final commitment. And something that you need to be on the same page on is definitely who's going to provide, who's going to make the money. Are you both going to make money? Are your children going to grow up in daycares and all of that? Or is one parent going to stay home while the other one goes and works? The next tip would be look at the people around you. Look at your parents, look at their relationships. Maybe they're divorced. I mean, they probably are. Most parents are. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old, and they both had other significant others since then. My dad got remarried. Take a long, hard look and audit, was that the best course of action? Did that really gain them anything? Or was it just them making a choice and living with it? Because most times, I wouldn't say divorce is always the answer. It really makes your finances go to shit. It doesn't help the kids at all. And if there's abuse or there's something going on in the home, obviously you need to get out of that situation. And I'm saying divorce is obviously your best course of action in something like that to an extreme. But thinking of the people that are in your life that you can look at, do you want a relationship like them? And realize that you are not them, and you can have a great relationship. You can have a long lasting relationship. You can have kids. And what else are we doing this all for? If you're not having kids, then what are we doing? What's it all for? You need to think about what type of legacy you're going to leave behind and how quickly life goes. So you should probably have kids, but that means finding that significant other. And we talked a lot about that earlier on in the video. But when you're looking at other people's relationships, they're still going through trouble. They're in their 60s, 70s. They're still having issues. They're still working through traumas. They're still holding on to things from the past. So realize that you don't need to be them, but you also need to recognize that every relationship is going to have troubles, it's going to have fights, it's going to have disagreements, and you need to learn how to get through those rather than giving up, maybe like your parents gave up on each other. Did they really find solace? Did they really find what they were looking for in that other person or that next relationship? Or did they still have issues? I'm willing to guess that they still have stuff going on that they're working through, and every relationship has challenges. So giving up necessarily isn't the best option. So what I'll leave you with, guys, in conclusion, try to find someone that is your age when you're younger, gain a lot of experience, and if they're an amazing person or they're your high school sweetheart or they're the one and you're the one for them and it's amazing and you can live happily ever after, then go for it. Do it. Because I know a couple of guys that have done that and they have great lives and they're super happy. But I think most people go through a lot of relationships when they're younger and they're really trying to figure out themselves as well as the person that they can connect with. So make sure that as you get older, and if you're still single in your late 20s or early 30s, find those younger people to be around, date younger women that maybe haven't gone through a lot of relationships before, and maybe they can find you to be the one that they really want to connect with and find something long-term with you and maybe build that into a marriage, a family, and so on. But really try to date those younger women. Know that there's going to be challenges dating younger women. Maybe it's financial problems. Maybe they don't know how to manage money. Maybe they're addicted to their phone. But you're also going to have a lot of negatives with the older women that you date that are maybe your age. They're going to have a lot of trauma from the past that they're bringing with them. They're going to be stuck in their ways. They're going to have their own money. They're going to not need you as much. And sometimes you do want to feel needed so that you can need each other in a relationship. If an older woman doesn't need you at all because she's fully set, she's stuck in her ways, she has a dog, she's got her own money, what does she really need you for? So really think about it when it comes to age and what you're really looking for long term. Make sure that you're on the same page as far as kids. Try to get on the same page as far as finances. That's one thing my wife and I are working through right now, is because sometimes we're not necessarily on the same page. And I have to take responsibility for my own downfalls when it comes to spending too much money. So we're working through it, we're budgeting, and we'll get through that. But you need to learn how to get through things, work together, and punch through the wall and get to the other side, because it can be happiness, it can be fruitful, it can be amazing if you just learn how to joke around, not take things so seriously, and really learn to have a shared vision together. And also just make sure that you're having fun, you're not taking life too seriously, and you can just enjoy each other's company. And if you're looking for that relationship, if you're really struggling on meeting someone in general, check this video out right here on dating and how to meet that person that you're looking for a long-term relationship.